I consider The 10th Planet to be one of the very best serials within the First Doctor's era. The reason is, though there are several, I think the Cybermen in this serial they're excellent. They're so creepy and mysterious and they're just odd. Such an unusual design, and then their manner of speaking, opening the mouth and emitting several words, brilliant. It's just such an extraordinary, iconic image, I think. I explained a lot of this perhaps in the retrospective of episode 1 of The 10th Planet. I emphasized how I love the Doctor Who serials, particularly there are four-parters. They have that Quatermass model. They're set in Quatermass in the Pit, I guess, rather, set in one location, and they're studying an event, or there's a species or an entity which the Doctor is in a communication with. I think it's an excellent vehicle for tension and mood building. The atmosphere becomes so rich and palpable and engaging. One of the purer science fiction stories of the first Doctor's run, it's about 50-50 science fiction stories and historicals. Even the science fiction stories tend to fall into social allegories, even storylines such as the Webbed Planet or the Ark are more about, well, not the Ark, the Ark, yes, and also stories like, Galaxy 4 and the Savages. They become more about, just basic social commentary than interesting concepts about speculative uses of futuristic technology. The Ark is that more so, to be fair. The 10th Planet it's an excellent distillation of what a alternate humanity might look like, how it might attempt to use our planet for resources, and how we utilize our scientific tools in order to prevent them from doing this. Bit of a, in the end of the serial now, a bit of a Deus Ex Machina that the Cybermen die. It's a bit of a battle droids at the end of the Phantom Menace moment, perhaps, but they had to end the story somehow. I mean, I don't want to make excuses, but I feel like the effort and their own excuses to why the Cybermen were defeated are enough thought was put into them that I appreciate the attempt. I love the look of the serial. I think it's very well directed. We get a good understanding of the main space of the set, and then there's the creepy imagery of Cybermen walking in the snow outside, and those Cybermen in particular. I just think it's a glorious mood piece, and while you're watching it, I find myself very engaged with it, and if the plot isn't as scientifically or logically sound as it ought to be, their means of defeating the Cybermen, I don't personally mind, because I'm just engaged with the plot, and I love just seeing them walk around these Cybermen menace, and the humans attempt to figure out how they're going to stop them. It is such a freaking shame that this 4th episode is missing. That being said, it makes it such a bummer to try and experience and enjoy the entire 4-parter. This genre-heavy approach to Doctor Who serials, a kind of pulpy quality, is something which initially Innes Lloyd, and then I can't remember the name of the producer who took him over, but he kept the same production standard that FOS, this monster idea, this concept of Doctor Who having kind of horror focus, which Patrick Troughton, the second Doctor, was all on board for. It becomes a trope of the second Doctor's era in general, which really seems to emerge around the time Innes Lloyd takes over at the end of First Doctor, around the time of The War Machines onward. And these are some of my favourite serials, The War Machines and 10th Planet, of the First Doctor. So it's amazing how much potency Innes Lloyd immediately added to the program, in my opinion, anyway. I have to admit, the William Hartnell era, whilst I like it, I feel as though there's only so much you could do with. Maybe it was beyond their intentions with the show. Although a younger actor like Patrick Troughton, even though John Pertwee was quite old, but he was quite fit and able. Tom Baker was relatively younger. He was 40. Obviously, Peter Davison young, Colin Baker relatively young, McCoy younger. They were all younger and more physically able than Hartnell, and so they could engage in more adventure and pulpy stories than Hartnell kind of standing around in a historical period, and we kind of get this, this capture escape sort of nonsense within the Reign of Terror in France, or the Third Crusade, or the just before the Massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve. Even if the serials are good, they tend to fall into that pattern, half of them, because half of them are those historicals. Some people really like the historicals. I enjoy them. I don't think it's some of the most impressive work Doctor Who ever put out, though they're fun novelties for what they are. More than novelties, but that's a bit dismissive. They come across as a bit dismissive, perhaps. But they are. I'm more captivated by the science fiction oriented stories, and clearly this was the ultimate legacy of the show. This is what people most remembered. There was, I don't know how much people were clamoring for historical stories in the later 60s and 70s, maybe in the 80s, maybe more so than I realise, to be fair. And when there is science fiction serials in the William Hartnell era, it tends to be him standing around and talking his way out of it or explaining what's going on, and often the companions or other characters introduced for this serial solve the plot. And he does sometimes. He will come up with some witty arrangement, although typically it's, you know, when the companions have to do something, there'd be some clumsy fight scene usually. I feel as though there was only so much William Hartnell could do to change the plot other than use his wits, and I guess the writers didn't have their own wits to think of many ways with which he could use his mind to outwit his enemies, rather than his companions doing this or that, taking this over there, whatever. Patrick Troughton's Second Doctor is a lot more entertaining in this respect, I think. And so the William Hartnell era can slightly, vaguely pale in comparison to certainly Second Doctor, all of them, you could argue, unfortunately. Maybe not Sixth Doctor, not because I don't like Colin Baker and what they were going for there. It's an interesting idea, I think. Maybe it wasn't as well considered as it ought to have been, especially given that time. It's fun to look at in retrospect, but as your replacement Doctor, you're a bit, hang on, what's going on? You know, Strangling Perry and all that. The Twin Dilemma is a horrible serial in general, to be fair. The writing of Sixth Doctor wasn't that great. His Cybermen and his Dalek serials in the... Oh, no, there's a couple. I like Vengeance on Varos, and that one of the Masters is fairly good as well, I think. But the frame device of Trial of a Time Lord is great, but the individual serials they explore, the storylines they explored, the flashbacks, forward flash, whatever, they're not that great, in my opinion, in the second Sixth Doctor season. So goodbye, William Hartnell. While I appreciate his era, I have to admit, I am extremely excited to get into Second Doctor, and henceforth, it's just going to be so much more enjoyable consistently than Hartnell's era. This retrospective is just going to be real uphill for a while. Up until maybe even Fifth Doctor I really love. Sixth Doctor will still be interesting, and Seventh Doctor is actually a very high standard, much better than Sixth Doctor generally. And so, yeah, it'll just be exciting from here on out. Looking forward to this. Wow. We don't get blocked, so. We'll be exploring more so, elaborating upon why I enjoy the Patrick Troughton era so much as we navigate through it. It's going to be slightly challenging to explain and appreciate all of this era, because it's the most lost era of Doctor Who. Only First and Second Doctor have lost episodes, although much of them are from Troughton's era, unfortunately. We'll do what we can. Thanks again, my friends. Have the best possible day and night you've ever imagined. Bye-bye, William Hartnell. Rest in peace. Take care, everyone. Thanks again.